Come on. Hmm. Hi, Micah. Yeah, no, not yet. Sorry. Running just a minute or two behind here. How are you doing? So we got a little bit of the internet hiccups going on today. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Um, so I had to do an update there. So hopefully everything's cool now. Hmm. Hey, Dean. Hey, Rianne. How are you? Daisy, Ashley, Abby, Gavin. How are you? Good to see you. So we have our trivia topic today, and I wrote it down the other day. It's Masters of the Universe, and I wasn't sure which one you guys were talking about. So, are we talking about the TV show, or are we talking about the movie? Because there is a movie on this one. Um, I think it's the Dolph Lundgren one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it sure is. Oh my god, I remember when that came out. Jesus. Yeah. um, let's see. Oh, we can yeah, we can. All right, so we're just gonna go off like general stuff here on this one. All right, we can do that. All right, welcome back. How are you? So I seen everybody popping in there. So grades updated yesterday, and I punched in everybody's stuff. Hi, Kim. How are you? Into Starfish there, so you should have gotten a hey, you doing fine, or hey, get to work kind of thing. I don't know exactly what Starfish tells you, but that's all done. And so, if you are in a situation where you are in athletics or something like that, and coach, I don't know if they still do this, but they used to poke in, hey, Aiden, how are you? They used to poke in there and take a look at your blackboard. And so with this one, blackboard, it's going to show you grade as an F for a while, just because that's the way I have to do it if I'm going to accept late assignments and not punch in zeros for everybody. So which I'm fine with. So it always shows your walk away today grade in Blackboard, but if you ever are at a point in time where you're not sure where you're at, pay attention to Starfish because I do send out flags on people if you're getting a little bit too far behind. Or you can always go in there and then just add up like all the assignments that we've done. All right, so which you can just go through the announcements and look at it and say, okay, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a critical thinking assignment right there. And then the discussions, and then just divide your current point total by whatever's been assigned by that point in time. Unfortunately, there's not a way to do that in Blackboard without, doing zeros. and not accepting late assignments. So that's kind of I don't know. It's the only workaround that I found for it. But at the same point in time, you should have a pretty good idea where you are. Oh yeah, no. If you didn't send it in, you can hang on to it all semester if you want. I don't care. So just email me once you decide what you want. Good question, Ria. On that. And so no, I'm not picky on that. I'm not gonna say, hey, email me by Friday, otherwise you lose it. No, man, it's cool. Some people do hang on to them until like the end too, and then they're like, I'll get this email that's like, hey, I want this, 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 and this, and it's like, okay, did you do all those? Because I don't remember. My memory sucks. But that's okay. I trust y'all. Um. So anyway, I did post the announcement for Module 3 as well, so post a reply on Module 3 discussion, or be here. If you're here, you're off the hook. Don't worry about it. But if you're not able to make these, then yeah, definitely jump in there. And a few of you are doing that. That's fine if you want to treat it completely like an online class. You don't have to do it synchronously. That's fine too. You just have to do this little discussion. It's really easy. And then turn in Module 3, Critical Thinking Assignment. I went over that on Monday. If you have any questions on that, just go over here to course modules, Module 3, and it's right there. So it'll give you all the information that you need. I think I've covered that 3 times now, but I don't know, maybe not. And then Chapter 5 and 6, homework and quizzes this week. Hey, Marcus, how are you? Those, it's standard stuff, just like we've been doing. This will be the norm for the end till the end of the semester. Two quizzes, 2 homeworks. Yeah, so every other week. So basically 1 a week. All right. So all that's due February 28th. We're moving right along. So we've got I don't know. This is always kind of the slow part of the semester for me, at least with the 16-week courses. It's kind of nice. Pace is kind of easy and things like that. I don't know. How are your other classes treating you? I'm sure there's some where you're starting to get some maybe heavier assignments because some people don't assign work in the first couple of weeks. And so you might be getting some of your first kind of like, oh, this is my first piece of the project or something like that. Um, but this class, it's very predictable, so hopefully that's helping you out a little bit. Speaking of like things that are changing, things that are predictable or not predictable, I guess. Regardless, I don't know where I'm going with that, but looks like we are coming back to campus next Monday. All right. Now, what that means for this class is nothing, okay, because this class is basically a hybrid class. But I will start doing in-class sessions on Wednesdays. If you want to be there, okay? Now, if you don't want to be there, that's absolutely fine, okay? You do not need to attend this class. There's no attendance points, all right? And we'll see if we can do YouTube or maybe we'll do Zoom on that. I don't know. I haven't been on campus, so I don't know their capabilities in terms of that. But this class was technically listed as a hybrid, and if you do want some face-to-face time, it will absolutely hook you up with that, especially if you're trapped on campus. I totally get it. So walking over to HSB. But my understanding is that we all have to get tested in order to actually come back first. And so, like I said, I'm going to be very, very flexible on that. So you do not need to actually, attend classes in person on Wednesday. We'll just figure out whether or not we're going to still hold the YouTube session on Wednesday or we're going to have to migrate over to Zoom. It'll completely depend upon what kind of camera equipment they have down there. I'm going to have to go check it out. All right. But next Monday, we're back here. All right. And we will be here every Monday for the rest of the semester. Dishing out extra credit and Masters of the Universe quizzes today and things like that in the future. But that's just to keep you guys in the loop. My understanding is the campus, we're going to get some kind of like announcement or something today. So we'll see whether or not they're going to blue or yellow or whatever or something. But don't fret about that. I'm sure some of your other classes are kind of like, oh, what are we going to do? But this one, be here on Mondays, just like we always have been. You'll be just fine. And then, be back on Wednesdays. And so whether we do it here or we do it on Zoom or you choose to come to class, that's fine too. All of those work for me. It's entirely up to you. I mean, I'm not too excited about going back to campus just quite yet, but I think that's just because, I don't know. I'm a little nervous about their ability to organize this really well. And it's not necessarily because anybody in the administration isn't bad at management or organization. It's just, it's a big task, and it's kind of, it's one that I wouldn't take on as a manager. It's just got there's too many moving parts and too much opportunity for screw up in there. What is this? See what is remaining online versus class. Yeah, no, absolutely. You can totally do it online. I'm totally cool with that. So that's been my absolute like goal this semester is to make sure that we are 100% flexible, at least in this class. And so yes, you can absolutely do the class online for the rest of the semester if you so choose. Like I said, when I set it up in the fall, there was a little piece of me that was like, we better keep it as a hybrid just in case. And so that's why I did set this one up as a hybrid. And yes, you can complete it 100% online if you so choose. Totally fine with me. Again, my heart just kind of goes out to people who are trapped on campus, and so I don't know. Maybe you've gotten used to it and whatnot, but if we do have the opportunity to do some face to face stuff, I'm totally down for it. We're just gonna have to see how that goes. So anyway, yeah. Any questions on that? Post them up in the chat. So it's time to start asking things. No, 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 trivia. Yeah, no. Everybody will be able to do that. So that's fine. We might have to double up on them on Mondays. Either that or nah, you'll still be able to do it. We'll just have to figure out a different way to do it. One of the ways that I've done it in the past that doesn't work on YouTube but does work on Zoom is using Kahoot. All right, and that one's a lot of fun. I have a whole bank of Kahoot trivia quizzes that I developed when I was doing, because I was actually teaching on Zoom way before COVID. We were experimenting it with the fall before, and I built a whole bunch of trivia Kahoot quizzes. And Kahoot's a heck of a lot of fun if you've ever used it before. I know it's very common in like high schools and stuff now, and so. Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, no, it is kind of fun. It just doesn't work on YouTube, and the reason why it doesn't work on YouTube is because again, I have shitty DSL, which I'm kind of impressed with how well it's been able to keep up with the bit rate on this class and stuff on all my live streams. But at the same point in time, the only way that it works on your end, where it actually comes out as a somewhat quality stream, is if I have built-in latency, and so there's like a 3 to 6 second delay. And that doesn't work if you're playing Kahoot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right. So let's dive into this stuff. And again, if there's any questions on any of this stuff, post them in the chat there. So I'd be happy to address those today. Otherwise, stay tuned. We'll talk about it more on Monday once we get kind of like word on what's going on. And I'm going to extend any apologies on the behalf of my colleagues if there's like some confusion and stuff like this going on. Thanks for your patience, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been a tough semester, but y'all have been awesome. You really have. At least you've been awesome to me, let me put it that way. And so big thumbs up to y'all. Anyway, let's dive in here. Course modules, we're still on diversity week. So yeah, we have 2 chapters, 5 and 6. We'll cover 6 next week. 6, if I'm not mistaken, is the decision-making process. Yeah, this one's really interesting, especially if you suffer from any of these biases in terms of decision-making. It's kind of a good discussion, but that's for next week. This week we got to polish off the rest of diversity. And so, like, a lot of books and a lot of business classes, they kind of boilerplate this stuff up, but hopefully our discussion that we had on Monday, I don't know, I hope it was a little bit different than what you usually hear, because I know you see this one over and over again. In fact, heck, I know a lot of y'all have been getting this in the public school system now. That was unheard of back when I was in even when I was teaching it like 12 years ago. And now, this is getting addressed in multiple different avenues. And so, watch out for that fatigue piece, because it's like, oh yeah, it's time to talk about diversity again. Got it. And especially if you have someone who doesn't necessarily take it seriously, who's presenting material, or you can kind of tell that, like I said the other day, there's this mismatch between, like, you look at the places where you're at, all right, and you look around you, and, well, okay, I don't see too much of that going on around here. And especially if you have been subjected to, feeling like you're in the minority group, whether it be by gender or religion or ethnicity at some point in time, and then you realize is like, oh, okay, actually I know what this looks like, and this place is cool. Okay. And then we're talking about it, incessantly in some respects. You kind of start to wonder why. All right. And the reason why is because there are places out there where this stuff is a problem. Okay. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I'm going to share some stories with you here, that will, kind of bring it maybe a little bit more to home, especially in terms of like a business environment or an organizational setting where, sometimes, like, when you find places that actually do have, some kind of like element of either, racism's kind of rare on the job. It wasn't so rare when I started working, which was 30 years ago. But even then, it was kind of rare to find somebody who was, I mean, most people were just joking about it, and that includes people who are on both sides of the fence. And so, I've worked in organizations even back then. The very first company that I worked for, it was like surprisingly diverse. Um, Considering it was a really good job, and it was all based upon like who knew who could get a job there. But everybody there was basically somehow linked to the military, and so it was really, most of them were veterans in one way or another. There were a few exceptions to that, including the boss. But people would speak up and say, "Oh, this guy's really cool" and things like that. But it resulted in this really diverse workforce. And oh my God, man, that's where I learned all my bad racist jokes, which I will not repeat here. But at the same point in time, we've all heard them too. And then it was only later in my career, especially when I got into management, where I actually started to see some of that. That it's kind of insidious in some respects, because there are a few of them out there, and I've had a couple bosses who I could definitely say were racists. One of them, I mean, all right, so I'm definitely in the in crowd amongst racists, so to speak, and so like I'm the white guy, the straight white guy kind of thing. And so the thing about, bona fide racists that you need to keep in mind is they never recruit victims; they try and recruit allies. All right. And so, if you're not part of that clique, or that ethnic group, so to speak, you might get some of it here and there. But like me, is like, hey Pat, they'll feel you out for a little while, and then eventually it gets to that point in time where they try and recruit you. So I had a boss do that to me once, and it's like, whoa, where's this coming from? All right, but that's not very common. I wouldn't say that happened too much in my career. Misogyny is a totally different thing. That's very, very common. I've seen that a lot. All right. And so, the difference between like misogynists or sexists, I don't think I've seen too many go the other way. But yeah, well, I've seen one or two. All right. But at the same point in time, like the thing about people who are really misogynistic is they don't try and recruit allies, because allies are competition, right? They try and recruit victims. And as a manager, you really got to watch out for that. All right. But like hands down, the most common form of discrimination that you'll see on the job, is age discrimination. It's everywhere. Okay. And it's almost become a little bit normalized. All right. So even last night I was scrolling through on LinkedIn again, and I see all this junk on there about, the X versus millennials and boomers and Gen Z and blah, blah, blah. Those are all stereotypes, all right? So there's no basis behind any of that stuff, and it's getting worse. That's the one that I have seen that is getting worse over the years. Sexism and misogyny, that one doesn't really seem to change all that much. Racism, I think that one's gotten a little bit better. So... But again, that's my career. It's a little bit, it's not representative of everybody, and so I totally get that. But at the same point in time, I mean, I want you to be prepared for what you're going to deal with in management. You're going to deal with age discrimination. It's guaranteed. I don't think you can work in a job and not have that come up. You're going to deal with sexual harassment. I would say that's mostly guaranteed. That one happens far too often. And it is definitely something that you're going to have to deal with as a manager. So watch out for that too. Racism, yeah, if you find it, yeah, that needs to be rooted out. I think it's kind of rare, all right? So at least in my opinion. And certainly in organizations that are a little bit more like protective of their employees, you definitely won't see it. So, but let's talk about this a little bit because the one thing that I want to kind of get off that just because of what we were talking about the other day, where we have different types of diversity. Here we go. And these are really important to consider. So a lot of times we just talk about surface level diversity, but it's actually deep level diversity that's really important. Hidden level diversity is one of those things where we were having that discussion the other day where it was like, well, how much of this stuff is really a company's business? Okay. And so that's something to consider as well, but it's not really something you can manage. This is what you need to try and manage here, because if we actually take a look at the impact that it has on companies, all right, so diversity, like we find that like surface level diversity doesn't really do that much, okay? In fact, in some ways it is a little bit counterproductive. All right, because people like sometimes they become guarded and cautious in situations like that. All right, but deep level diversity is the thing that you really want because then you actually start to see some of this competitive advantage. Okay, so and this book kind of like skirts around this issue a little bit. I mean, I know what they're doing here, but at the same point in time, if you actually take a look at the bona fide research out there, and especially some of the more recent stuff, is like this competitive advantage really comes from deep level diversity. So you got to have people who are from different backgrounds. Okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean what they look like. It means how they think, how they approach problems, the experiences they bring to the table. And that's the thing that actually really starts to push things like problem solving. When you get people in a room and you say, okay, we got this big project, this task that's coming up. And, you put three people in the room and all three of them have the exact same, like, middle class upbringing, state school kind of experience, okay? They might come up with some solutions, but they're not going to be the same solutions as if you have someone who, say, is like considerably older and spent 10 years in the military, or someone in there who, maybe they didn't go to college right off the bat and they had to go out there and they worked their way up in the company for a little while, then got that BA, and now they're on the team. And so it's that difference in background that really makes a difference in terms of competitive advantage when it comes to things like problem solving and creativity. The book does do a good job about talking about this because there is this correlation between, if you actually do have surface level diversity, meaning you have people from different genders, different ethnicities, different ages in the same room, chances are you do have a little bit more of that deep level diversity. Okay, just because of the nature of those people coming from different places and experiencing different things from different perspectives over the course of their lives, that does happen. Okay, but really, like, I mean, think about it. So, I mean, if you grow up in a neighborhood that's, fairly diverse and things like that, or most of you go through high schools, and the high schools are fairly diverse. I mean, you do find exceptions to that. Maybe not so much in Pueblo, but definitely here in Colorado Springs. There are some high schools you walk into, it's like, whoa! So, everybody here looks exactly the same, but in a case like that, you wouldn't necessarily have any surface level diversity. But in other ones, like, general public high school and stuff like that, yeah, I would say that you have fairly high levels of surface level diversity. But you don't have much, like, you don't have much deep level diversity in there. Everybody's kind of in the same spot in their life. A lot of these people have grown up in the same school system and they're kind of, the same. They have the same experiences. They had the same teachers. They went to the same assemblies. They knew who the cool kids were. They knew who the kids you stay away from were, And so there's not a lot of deep level diversity in a situation like that. So you take people who come from a background like that, And say it's a community like Pueblo, where only about half the people, who graduate from high school and go on to college actually move out of the community, which is rare, by the way. That makes Pueblo very, very rare. All right, there's very few communities in Colorado of any decent size, of which Pueblo is certainly one, where that happens. Okay, like, I mean, here in Colorado Springs, I mean, it's like notorious. We like, I mean, you graduate from high school up in here nowadays. I mean, and 10 years later, I'd be lucky if like 1 out of 300 of you still lives in the town. So, and that's not true in Pueblo. And so you do get organizations down there, and I see this in organizations, particularly some of the ones that Brad and I, or Dr. Gilbraith and I, work with, where, I mean, like half the workforce there is local. It's all defined by what high school you went to and things like that. That's not a lot of like, that's not deep level diversity if you think about it. And so that's the stuff that actually really does make a difference on the job. And so we're going to kind of let this one sit for a little bit, because of course they're going to have to, they need to do more research on this, to be really, really, really straightforward with you. So anyway, all right, here we go. We're half an hour in, so let's get our first trivia. And like I said, I promised Masters of the Universe here, and I'm not going to just limit this to the movie. We're going to actually talk about the toys and stuff like that, if this is what I think you're thinking about. Let's see. What is Skeletor's base of operations called? What is Skeletor's base of operations called? What is his fort called? Go for it. I remember this. I had this toy. What is Skeletor's fort called? I had this. Actually, it wasn't mine. It was my brother's. Come to think of it. Skeletor's base was called, yes, good job, Matt. It was called Snake Mountain. And I remember this, all right, and as soon as I saw this one, it was like, all right, I got to do this one, because the actual castle set, and this is back in the 80s. Oh my God, man. How did you guys come up with this? Is this coming back or something like that? But anyway, it was this big purple monstrosity that was about this big, okay? And it had a tower on it, but then it had a hole in one side, and it had a glove that you put on your hand that was a snake with his head on it, and you could use it to actually, like, grab He-Man and eat him. It was a fantastic toy, and we totally ruined it within about a year. So, how does a skeleton have muscles? I have no idea, man. I can't answer that. Like, I think the whole thing is that it's just his face and his head got melted off at one point in time, but I'm not too up to speed on the Lord. But yeah, he is pretty buff for being a skeleton. I get that. All right, well, good job. We'll do another one here in just a sec. All right. Yeah, I don't get that one at all. So that's okay. I mean, the tiger is green and stuff, whatever, man. So, and what's the little guy with the hat? Wasn't it Orko? Something like that. I can't remember. So, but now there was a movie at the time. This is Dolph Lundgren, and then there was a TV show. Maybe you guys are interested in the TV show. I noticed the other day that there's a YouTube channel that plays classic G.I. Joes like 24/7. They are horrifyingly bad. Now that I look at them, I remember them being much, much better, but they are absolutely Orca. Yeah, you're right. He's got a red hat. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So yeah, got it. So, all right. So, wow, you guys are into this. Some of you are probably like, what the hell is this? And I feel you on that one, okay? All right, so challenges of diversity. All right, so this is the meaty part of the chapter, and this is the stuff that I want you to take away from the lecture, more so than just my opinions. All right? Diversity matters on the job because not just because it's important, but because it is also hands down any kind of like EEO violation is going to be absolutely lethal to your career. Okay, and so I always scrape out a minute to talk about specifically the law, all right, as associated to this, because number one, understand that the law is there to protect you as an employee, whether you be a manager or employee. And number two, as a manager, understand that it is not your job to interpret the law. Okay? You're not a lawyer. Don't even pretend to be one. Okay? Even if you are a lawyer, you know this. All right? And so we're going to go over some of the laws here today because I usually get, when we do this session in class, I almost invariably get questions like this because I guarantee you some of you have experienced workplace discrimination in one way or the other, whether it be sexual harassment, whether it be, preferential treatment in terms of hiring and promotions, things like that. And so it's really important to actually understand what these things actually mean. All right. And so let's talk about them. So legal challenges. The first one out there in the book actually just addresses this is this idea of reverse discrimination. So there are arguments out there that basically posit that reverse discrimination doesn't exist because it's not necessarily possible. I'm not going to wade into that one, but honestly, I want you to understand this, that reverse discrimination is not protected by the law, okay? So there's nothing in the law that actually applies towards any form of reverse discrimination. So don't let someone try and pull that on you and say, oh, we're going to, I'm going to do a reverse discrimination suit. There's no such thing, okay? And likewise, at the same point in time, if people are making this argument, there's one of two things that are going on. Either A, they don't understand the law, okay, and they don't understand that it doesn't work in that direction. And so that's fine. I mean, so they say ignorance is no defense, and that's absolutely true in the eyes of the law, but it's same thing's true as a manager. But you can go out of your way to kind of explain this one as well. The second thing is they're unfaithful actors. Okay, so and I've seen that happen a couple times in my career, where you have someone who's trying to claim reverse discrimination. They don't really care about the outcome of that. What they really are trying to do is make some kind of moral point about something like affirmative action. Don't let them get away with that. Okay, so I mean, I've known 2 or 3 people. Yeah, in the course. In fact, I was involved in one of these. Way back in the day. Well, I guess it wasn't that long. It was about midpoint in my career, where I had someone who wanted to argue this one all the way to the end, and honestly, he was just doing it to basically try and troll the organization. All right, it didn't work out for him in the long run. All right, he got put in his place. As soon as a lawyer walks in the room, you're outranked instantaneously, and that's exactly what happened in that case. And, but at the same point in time, I should have seen it coming as a manager. He'd been complaining about this for a little while, basically. So we wound up promoting someone that he felt was unqualified for the job. And this individual, she was hands down more qualified than he was. He just didn't see it that way. And so he tried to push the envelope on this one. Went through the HR process, went all the way to the point in time where we were governed by an arbitration clause. So he wanted to take this one all the way to arbitration. The arbitrator listened to it for about 5 minutes and just shut him down. And he had made such a stink about it up to this point in time that everybody was like, hey, how'd that case go? Shut up, man. Just understand that under the law, there's almost no basis for this. All right, but let's actually talk about things that are out there. So workplace discrimination. All right, so this is okay. So what are the actual things out there that are considered discrimination? So there are 2 forms of discrimination out there that you really have to kind of pay attention to. Probably the most important one to think about is something that we call disparate impact. All right, and so disparate impact is when you have a measurable impact of disparity, thus disparate impact, between 2 identifiable groups. So if you have an organization, you walk into it, all right, and say we have a large enough workforce out there, say you get 1,000 employees, but only 3 of them And say we have 1,000 employees, 100 of them are considered in management roles, but only 3 of those are women. Okay, obviously we have some kind of disparate impact going on here. There's actually a standard that you can apply. It used to be called the 3/5 rule. I'd have to Google that to see if that's still implied there. But it was basically like if there was a disparity that was greater than, I can't remember exactly how it went, but the way that you measured it was, so like if the community that this workplace was basically nested in, so say like Pueblo. If we go into Pueblo, and I'd say Pueblo is what? Probably about, at least half Hispanic, I would say, yeah. So we go into an organization down in Pueblo, all right, and then we look around, and this organization, everybody in the community, everybody in the organization is local community, but there was a greater disparity than 1/5 away from whatever the community would be. So say like we go into this one, and only like, say like not even a quarter of the managers were Hispanic. All right, we would take a look around at that and say, oh, wait a minute, what's going on around here? Okay, and that's not the exact math. I didn't pick a good example there, but at the same point in time, you can Google that. Just Google 3/5 rule. And no, it's not the one in the Constitution. There's a different one. Oh, no, it's the 4/5 rule. That's what it is. Yeah, 3/5 rules in the Constitution deals specifically with slavery. No, it's the 4/5 rule. All right, so we would expect it to be at least 4/5 as much as diverse as the community is, okay? And so if we go into a situation like that, say it's just 20 employees, all right, and the community is half Hispanic, and so we go in there, we expect to see 10, but we would give ourselves 4/5 wiggle room. So it could be down to 12, or it could be down to 8 or up to 12, and it wouldn't be considered disparate impact. But if we go into a situation like that, and we only have 2 people who are Hispanic out of 20 who are managers in there, obviously there's something going on here. All right, so that's disparate impact. That's the thing that you want to look for on surface level diversity. Now, of course, that has nothing to do with deep level diversity. That's completely different, but you just have to understand that that's disparate impact is what they're going to look for. And the people who are going to be doing the looking are these guys right here, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. All right. So, yeah, no worries, Jeff. No problem. The EEOC is definitely an organization that you will probably deal with at some point in time in your management career, hopefully in a positive, constructive way. Because the EEOC is an agency under the federal government, but it is very different than all other agencies in the federal government. So you're going to deal with a lot of government agencies over the course of your career, depending on on your organization. So like me, the people that I dealt with the most when I worked in both the railroad and the airlines was OSHA. We saw OSHA all the time. All right. In the airlines, it was the FAA. I dealt with them a lot too. The railroad is the FRA. The Federal Railroad Administration. I think I saw those guys like once, maybe twice. So, but you're going to deal with the EEOC from time to time, and hopefully it goes well for you. So, because unlike OSHA, so OSHA, if you work in a safety sensitive job, the way that it works is OSHA has inspectors. They come out, they take a look at your stuff. And they say, okay, this is a violation. They'll write you up on it. So it's like you got to replace these floor mats, or people don't have access to PPE or whatever like that, and they'll give you like usually 90 days or 120 days to correct it. And if they'll come back and they'll take a look at it, and if you haven't corrected at that point in time, boom, they'll write you a ticket, so you get a fine, so to speak. So then usually you have a 6 month to a year cure period. They'll come back, they'll check it again. And if you're still ignoring it at that point in time, they'll write you a bigger fine, or sometimes they'll red tag your business. They'll say, no, you have to cease operations until you actually address this. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen that happen, on the job. I've seen people get fines, all right, but they basically work like traffic cops, all right. EEOC is more like a SWAT team. Okay, somebody calls them in, and they will absolutely tear your organization to pieces, because unlike traffic cops, they're SWAT cops, and they're not agents, they're lawyers. Okay, and so the way that it works is they will actually if someone files a complaint, with the EEOC against your company, and they have documentation, so they have some kind of evidence. The EEOC actually picks up the case, all right, on the behalf of that employee, and they sue you. They sue your company. They sue you personally as the manager if you're the one who's responsible for this. And so they become much more dangerous than, say, like OSHA come in with a $20,000 fine, because the EEOC, they'll come in, they'll sue you personally, they'll go after your house, they'll go after your car, they'll go after your kid's college fund. They'll try and go after the company too, but the company is going to be smart about it, and I've seen this happen a couple times. So, like, say I have a manager, say like I'm a regional manager, and I have a general store manager, so I run a chain of stores or something like that, and I have a store manager who has been absolutely sexually harassing his employees and stuff. But when I brought this manager on board, I had him go through the sexual harassment training that none of us take seriously. Okay, but again, he did the training, he signed off on it, and I understand this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but, some employee catches him on, say, like a bona fide quid pro quo case, which is rare, but it does happen. So you got him on tape or camera or something like that. EEOC's got a ironclad case here. They're going to sue me. They're going to sue the company, and they're going to sue him personally. Well, me as his boss, and then the company itself, our smartest move right off the bat is just to fire that guy and say, okay, you're donezo. And then we can use that, oh, well, no, he did the sexual harassment training. It kind of is a legal shield. Especially if say we did an investigation, but he was exonerated through that investigation one way or another. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence. Maybe, the victims of his escapades didn't really want to lose their jobs at the time, but they were still collecting evidence, and eventually it got bad enough to the point in time where they flipped it over to the EEOC rather than bringing it to us. Although the EEOC will usually tell those employees to bring it to us first, and then give us a chance to kind of do something about it. But let's just say that didn't happen in this case. The ELC will probably still come after us, but they'll definitely go after him. Okay, so they'll definitely go after him at that point in time. And so our smart move is just fire that guy. You're on your own. All your legal bills and things like that, they're no longer our problem because you did the sexual harassment training. You said you weren't going to do this, but you did it anyway. Okay, and so the EEOC is a very different type of organization within the federal government. Be very careful. But at the same point in time, as an employee, understand they're a resource that are there for you, okay? And the reason why they go after people from kind of that outside perspective is because sometimes, like, things like sexual harassment in particular or age discrimination are just endemic in some companies. And, the EEOC is out there to kind of make examples of people, so that everybody else kind of tightens up. And that does happen from time to time. So now the thing about, like, the Civil Rights Act, Title VII, 1964, this is the governing law that basically, establishes what disparate impact is and how you measure it and also to whom it applies. And so it's going to be like, you can't discriminate against anybody on the basis of race, national origin, sex, disability, religion, or pregnancy status. That's the other one. Veteran status is another one, although that's covered by a different law. And what do we mean by, like, you can't discriminate? You can't make, like, anything that has a material impact cannot hinge on any of those individual categories, okay? And so what we mean by material impact is like a hiring decision. Did we actually give you the job or not? Promotions. Did we give you a promotion or not? Did we lay you off because of this? Those are things that actually have disparate impact. Now, some people, and I've seen this happen in a couple instances in the past, where someone was like, well, why did they get the good shift? You got to be able to prove there is some kind of impact. All right. And so, just because you want day shift and you feel like, okay, well, he's buddies with the boss, and the only reason why they do this is because they're drinking buddies on the weekend. And so, because he's a guy, he got the day shift. That's not good enough. It's got to be something more like along the lines of, Well, actually, that shift has a premium of an extra dollar an hour. Well, okay, now we're talking business. All right, but or it can't be like, well, why do they make me do all the crappy jobs? But are you still getting the paid the same as everybody else? There's not material impact there that you can actually demonstrate. So that's the other thing that a lot of people screw up about this. I think discrimination is like based upon like just certain levels of treatment, but the law doesn't really protect that. What it does protect is that are you getting paid the same, or is it costing you opportunities? And so keep that in mind as well. All right. Because I've seen quite a few people get shot down and they get discouraged. And so they think that like some kind of discrimination is going on, but they don't understand that the EOC is only going to go after certain things because it has to be something that can be demonstrable. So you have to have some kind of proof. And the other thing is it's got to have some kind of material impact, meaning that, okay, it actually resulted in a worse job outcome for somebody as opposed to somebody else. And so be careful with that. Um, And some of the other stuff that's kind of interesting that you should consider is not just the Civil Rights Act, but this one right here, the Equal Pay Act 1963, which basically it prohibits gender discrimination in terms of pay. But we have this issue that keeps coming up, all right? So where women, across the board kind of make less money. All right, now this has been in the news a lot over the last couple of years, and there are people out there arguing against this in some ways and saying, "Oh, well, no, that's doesn't actually not true," and stuff like that. And okay, so there's merit to both of those arguments because it just depends on how you measure it. But that doesn't matter to you as a manager. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. I don't care where you come down on that issue as a manager. Because what these folks say is what actually matters to you as a manager. Okay, and if I can prove material impact in terms of men and women not making as much, okay, in your workforce, you've got a problem as a manager because that is expressly illegal under the Equal Pay Act. Now, the contrarian arguments go out there is like, well, a lot of women don't negotiate for their salary, which again, thank you for stereotyping. So even to prove a point, sometimes people can't help themselves, can they? All right. So, but they say, well, they don't negotiate as much for a salary. So, and that's at the same point in time, a lot of them like maternity leave. My wife went through this, of course, and so well, we're looking at gross earnings over somebody's career, and someone has 3 kids. Yeah, okay, they might not make as much. The EEOC doesn't see it that way, right? And so stop making those arguments if you're a manager, because really, when it comes down to it, if they come in and they take a look around your office and they say, okay, what's the tenure of everybody around here? How long have they been here? And things like that. And say you have 2 accountants, one's male and one's female, and the male accountant's making twice as much as the female accountant. The EEOC is going to look at that and they're going to say, "What the hell?" Okay, so they're not going to care that she had maternity leave for a year or something like that. They're not going to care about it. It's like she's a CPA, he's a CPA. What's the deal? Now a lot of that stuff is protected under like we'll get into this in the future when we talk about the difference between salary and hourly employees. Okay. And so the idea that most companies don't actually disclose salaries, I find problematic. There's reasons why they do that. If you've ever been in a company where it's absolutely verboten to, tell your coworkers what you made, that's shady and you should be suspicious of why your company's doing that. All right, my guess is that because the EEOC's come in there and they've tossed their cookies a couple times. All right, so well, that's not the right expression. I'm sorry, that's not where I meant to go with that. So, but at the same point in time, understand that the EEOC is going to pay attention to this. All right, so you can make whatever arguments you want, but really, when it comes down to it, this and this exist for reasons. All right, that are totally legitimate. All right, they're not there to protect. Unfortunately, the law protects idiots and shysters just as much as it protects people who are legitimately in bad situations. And so we do actually have to, take that into consideration. All right. Anyway, all right. So we're going to move on here in just a minute and talk about some of these specific categories before we wrap this one up. But I owe you another He-Man question here. So, Masters of the Union or the Universe. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, let's ask another Skeletor question. What was the name of his cat ally? What was the name of Skeletor's cat ally? There we go. Oh man, I remember this. Yeah, we'll stay on Skeletor here. So, what was his cat ally? I had this one too. In fact, if you had Snake Mountain, I think it came with him. So yeah, it's good job, Rian. So Panther, yeah, good job. All right. So he didn't have to Google that, did he? He just banged it right in there, didn't you? All right, cool stuff. All right, let's go through some of the specific legislation out here. All right, so because there's two others that I want to cover today before we leave. Yeah, no, good job, Ashley, but Rian beats you to it today. All right, so Johnny on the spot with the post there. Anyway, so let's talk about some of these specific ones. We've talked about Title VII, is Civil Rights Act. The one thing that you do need to know about Title VII has been modified a couple times, and the one thing about violations, if someone can actually prove discrimination in the workplace, there was a modification that was made, I think it was either 1972 or the 1994 one, that actually allows for what's called punitive damages, which means that, you know, when the EEO sues you, they can sue you for much further above and beyond what the actual material impact is. So usually in court, in a civil suit, you can only sue for the difference, all right, in terms of like material impact. So like if if someone hits your car, all right, and you don't get injured, okay, and the car itself is a total loss. Usually the most that you can actually sue that other person for is the actual cost of the car. Okay, so whatever, with the value of the car, whatever it actually was. And so that's why, like, if you have to go get Frank Azar or something like that, the reason why he's got commercials up there that say, oh, we got you $150,000. That I guarantee you in that case, that person is usually going to be out of car, out several months of work, and several $1,000s in medical bills. Very rarely do they order like any kind of punitive damages in a case like that, especially if nobody's particularly at fault, or if it's not like egregious. Okay, so it's not like somebody like the Joker driving down I-25 the wrong lane. You know, they probably sue him for punitive damages. So, but even then, in most cases, you're only entitled to what you actually lost, what you're out. The exception to that, of course, is discrimination. All right, so discrimination suits, this is where you do get those multi-million-dollar lawsuits. Okay, so they are, I get it, but at the same point in time, they do exist for a reason, and so I gotta be like really honest with you on this one. Yeah, ambulance chasers and things like that, they will go after things, but they're there, and you can find better PI attorneys than those guys. Although they usually have the resources to actually be able to push something through. But if you do know someone who is involved in a wreck with like, and not like you versus like the guy across the street, you know, kind of thing. But if you get hit by a semi truck or something like that, or a food delivery van, that company, I'm going to tell you, when companies get involved in legal actions against individuals, they get nasty. Okay, and so, you know, I mean, I would probably hire like a Hoyser or a Frank Azar or something like that if I got hit by a Walmart truck. Oh man, who did that happen to? Who was it that happened to? And so, in those cases, yes, I would agree because the company, I would question all their ethics, but I don't know if I would want to hire a lawyer who is terribly ethical in a case like that. So, oh my God, that's on YouTube. I can't believe I said that, but whatever. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. But there are, gosh, who was it who got hit by somebody famous? I can't remember now. Tracy Morgan, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right, Jeff. It was Tracy Morgan. So got nailed by a Walmart truck, and now he owns Walmarts. And that's why you want one of those lawyers, okay? So in a situation like that, it's not because of, you know, Joe Blow on the street. Unless you're DUI, then yeah, absolutely. So, but at the same point in time, You know, most of the time it's just kind of some kind of fender bender or something like that. But anyway, so Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act actually allows you to go after punitive damages on these things, and they do that does happen to companies. Okay, I think the most famous one recently was actually Uber, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then Equal Pay Act, we talked about that. Age Discrimination Act, age discrimination over those over 40. I think we talked about that on Monday, so I'm not going to talk about that one. The ones that I want to talk about are these two right here, the ADA and FMLA. All right, so Americans with Disabilities Act, who was it? It was either Ford or Carter who signed this into law. But the ADA prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, public service, public accommodation, and telecommunications. So the ADA is probably the most misunderstood law, all right, out there. And it's the one that managers themselves, you will find ways in which you struggle with this a little bit, but at the same point in time, it's pretty straight up. It's pretty straightforward. It's just misunderstood. Do people abuse it from time to time? Yeah. Does that give it a bad rap? Yeah. All right. Do people legitimately need this? Yes. Okay. And, you know, the problem with it is that a lot of managers misinterpret this as being like some kind of onerous thing, where really, if you meet anybody who actually does suffer from a bona fide disability, you know, and one that's like patently obvious or something like that, you'll find that managers who defend this law usually have some experience with employees who, I mean, it's there to protect them and it's there to help you. Okay. And so absolutely just understand, like, the way that the AD works is pretty straight up. You can't discriminate on the basis of ability in any form unless you have what's known as a bona fide BFOQ, a bona fide occupational qualification. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up that there are companies out there who abuse this. Watch out for them. But, you know, the reason why BFOQs exist is, like, you don't want, I mean, you have to discriminate in some cases. That's absolutely the right word that you want to use in this. So, like, when I worked for the railroad, we couldn't hire anybody who was colorblind, okay, which makes sense. You got to be able to see the signals. Same thing. In the airlines, we would never hire a deaf pilot, let alone a blind one. Okay, so those are BFOQs, bona fide occupational qualifications. All right. Now, so there are companies out there who've taken a look and said, oh, well, we can justify, you know, being a certain BMI, body mass index, as a bona fide occupational qualification because you're a model. Okay, that is baloney, and the reason why they're able to get away with this is because they get hit with ADA suits all the time. And rather than actually taking this to some form of conclusion in court, you know, either they hide it behind arbitration clauses, which I could go on ad nauseum about, or what they do is, like, if someone actually does bring up a bona fide occupational qualification, and they challenge that in court. This happened where? This happened, I think, with Old Navy a couple of years ago. It happens with Hooters all the time. So, I mean, you can Google Hooters, look at their Wikipedia, and if you go down to the bottom of it, there's, like, you know, legal actions. It's like this it's a huge section of all these people who tried to sue Hooters over the years. Because they let them go because they either reach a certain weight or they get pregnant or something like that, which are all ADA violations. But the way they make these suits go away is as soon as one of them gains traction, you know, in the court or something like that, they'll get out the checkbook, they'll approach the employee, and they'll say, okay, I'm going to start drawing zeros on this until you go away. And then as soon as you know, like, we used to do this on the railroad. I shouldn't talk about this too much. But at the same point in time, I did see it happen a couple times where, you know, okay, so we've got some kind of legitimate, you know, safety violation concern. All right, someone was injured because of it. In fact, I was closely involved in a couple of these. One of them was flat out my fault. Don't feel good about that. But at the same point in time, it happened. All right. The company shows up and says, all right, so we're in the wrong. We're going to write you a check. All right. But they would be very, very straightforward about this. Is like, this is the maximum level check that we're going to write you. Okay. Anything beyond this, we're going to go to court. We're going to go to arbitration. I think In ours, we didn't have an arbitration clause with their union guys, so they could go to court on this one. But the way the company would handle that is we had staff attorneys with the company, and I mean, we pay these people regardless, and so they would just bury this other side in legal work, all right, over the course of years, basically starve this guy out with his family and stuff like that. And the union would chip in as legal defense to a certain point in time, but after a while, they knew that the company was going to outspend them on this one. And so the company was very smart about this. They would just up to them straight up front and say, okay, take this. All right, it's generous. And they were usually pretty generous. Hooters does the same thing. All right, but then they slap an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement on it. And so you don't hear about like the case. But you can go to their wiki and see some of that stuff, because that's where companies have actually abused this. They try and say like, well, we want a certain type of employee who has this particular look to her. Okay, so let's be honest about that right up front. All right, and so we're going to make certain BMI or a certain weight, bona fide occupational qualification, and I'm going to try and hide behind this law here. It's complete baloney and garbage, and unfortunately, people get away with it. Same thing's true with FMLA. All right, so FMLA, you're going to run into this on the job fairly soon. All right, so FMLA basically grants authority for, I think it's up to 120 days off. To take care of a new child, any kind of medical condition, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. All right. So you'll see people abuse this. Okay. Let them, don't get upset about it as a manager. Okay. The law is not there to benefit them. It's to protect people who legitimately need it. Okay. And so unfortunately, yes, are there doctors out there who will absolutely write off scripts on FMLA? Yeah, sure. Okay, you can find one. All right, who will basically give you permission to abuse FMLA time off. It's not hard to do. Will people take advantage of it? Yeah. Okay. Are you going to get mad about it? Yeah, as a manager. Can you do anything about it? No, don't even try. You're not a freaking doctor. Don't even think about it. All right. So, because the last thing you want to do is discourage employees who really need to use it from doing so. So this is one of those things where you're just going to have to suffer your fools. All right. So, yeah, just suck it up. That's the reason why you have the corner office and the big paycheck. So just deal with it, all right? As a manager, if someone brings an FMLA request to you, just embrace it and understand that if it's legit, the people will appreciate that. Okay, and if it's not legit, you're gonna have to just deal with it. Okay, because I've seen so many managers get in trouble over this. Okay, because it turns out that was real, and Jerry actually did have cancer. Okay, and he missed a couple treatments because you told him that he couldn't take that day off. Yeah, okay. Hello, EEOC. This just turned into a heat-seeking missile coming right towards you. Guess what? You deserve it. All right. So, if you have any specific questions about FMLA, your HR people should know how this one works. But at the same point in time, understand that you as a manager, it is not your job to, how sick are you? Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that as a manager. If I catch you doing that as a manager, all right, so I'm going to disown you as a student. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right. So, yeah, I think that's basically all the legal stuff that you really need to watch out for. Other questions, comments that come up in the past. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if you do have any, put them in the chat there here while we do our last Masters of the Universe. And then I'll try and address them specifically. And if you have any other, very specific questions, feel free to email them to me. I'm not an attorney. I am kind of steeped in this stuff because I've had to deal with it so much. But at the same point in time, understand that when, I talk about things that are in this chapter, it's all done with the intent that, and the assumption that, no, you're not going to willingly discriminate against people. All right, you're not that kind of person. I get it. Okay, most of us aren't. All right, there are a few out there. All right, none of you. All right, and second of all, you're going to be a little bit blindsided by this stuff when it does occur because you're going to see it and you're going to go out of your way to try and make an accommodating, a helpful, a friendly, open, accepting workforce or workplace. And if there's people in there who are like actively working against you, they're going to be kind of a surprise. And so I think it's more important that you understand the law, you understand what's actually, provable. And what the law actually states, but also at the same point in time, you kind of also understand that, it's not the surface level diversity that really matters. It's that deep level diversity. That's harder to cultivate, but getting surface level diversity piece right actually leads you to a situation where you can start getting and cultivating that deep level diversity, which is what you'll really benefit from as a manager. Okay. And so that'll wrap this one up. So again, if you have any questions on this, please ping me. Or ask him in the chat there. But let's do one more here. Let's see. Oh, I already asked that one. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, it actually wants me to answer these. Well, I don't know the answer to this one. Oh, no, I can't ask you that one. You know that one. Let's see. I don't know. Are we actually talking about the action figures here? I didn't know this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So maybe you guys will actually know that. Oh, actually, I do know this one. Battle Cat's weaker form is known as what? Battle Cat's weaker form is known as what? There you go. I know this one. So Battle Cat had a weaker form. What is it? All right. So Battle Cat's weaker form was what? And then we're done with Masters of the Universe. This is so esoteric, it's not even funny. We'll do Marvel next week. So. Oh, we're not getting any takers here. So. There we go. Good job, Abby. It's Cringer. Excellent. It's not Battle Kitty. Yeah. Battle Kitten. So it was Cringer. Yeah, good job. All right, so there you go. All right, we gave out 3 today for Masters of the Universe. We're going to go ahead and call it quits here today. I'll stick around here for a couple more minutes if you have any questions. Other than that, we're at the hour mark, so we'll turn you loose. We'll see you all on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend out there. Actually, I was going to take a look at the weather real quick. Supposed to warm up this weekend? A little bit better. See, this is good. This is good right here. I'm happy with that. So snow today here. Oh man. Okay. Well, oh, that's right. I saw that the other day. But hopefully you enjoy the weekend. It won't be quite as gnarly out. So it's looking like a magnitude or order better than it was last weekend, but still cold. But anyway, if you can get out and enjoy it, or get up to the high country, so maybe it's nicer up there. Enjoy that too. But just understand, Module 3, pretty straightforward, nothing to do this weekend, but if you knock it out, that's cool too. So regardless of that, we'll see you all on Monday. Take care now. Feel free to jump out of here, but if you have any questions, stick around. I'll be here for a couple more minutes. You too, Gene. Appreciate it. You bet, Ashley. You too, Jeff. Oh, and thanks for, Tracy Morgan. Yeah, no, thanks for helping my memory out there. Appreciate that. You too, Daisy. Take care. All right, T-minus 30 seconds and counting. All right, 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. Have a good weekend.